There was a good comment earlier. I think it was by Daniel Hutmacher saying, when you showed the stats of the different storage between JSON and XML, have you ever put compression on that M bar chart that's storing the JSON?
I have not. I haven't tried that. It's an interesting idea, though.
Yeah, I love that for the storage. I had the same question after I saw it. Oh, that's genius. That would actually probably work.
Yeah.
No, not bad. All right. Well, let's see. What shall we talk about here next? So I have it since Aaron is all. James, what got you into? So your session coming up at 10 o'clock Eastern, I should say for the folks too. It's on SQL Server and continuous integration. What made you get started working with continuous integration?
Bad development practices, basically.
Oh, now come on now.
There are none of those.
Yeah. I think it was. I'd just been in a lot of places where we were having trouble merging code. You know, the whole branching stuff is really cool. Git flow, you know, it's really good, but merging that code and merging it regularly and getting everything back together and tested, and not just testing our code but testing our deployments. When I started reading about continuous integration and the methods there, it just made a lot of sense and just made me think, why weren't we doing it this way?
And were your developers already doing it before you got the database side involved? Was that like it came to the database side later?
I have to be careful what I'm saying here. Well, I think a lot of the practices happen first at the application layer. So with developers, I think they're often quite ahead of the curve on source control, unfortunately, and just generally things like Git flow and the working practices and some of like the unit testing frameworks and all things like that. I think the database always seems to lag behind in those areas. So yeah, I think they were doing stuff first, but whether they were doing full continuous integration, you know, I don't think I've ever worked anywhere where everyone's committing their code to the central branch 2 or 3 times a day. So, yeah, that's always a challenge, but
it always feels like developers are way far ahead in terms of practices. Either developers or sysadmins, you know, are way far ahead of practices. We're just so hesitant, resistant to change as database administrators.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm going to mention in my talk a little bit later, but I think we have got a bit of an excuse, and that is that deploying database changes is difficult. You know, with code, it's just a text file, right? With the code in it, you apply the latest version, and that's it. It's the state and managing that and making sure we don't break that whilst we make our changes. It's not really an excuse for working practices, but it definitely is trickier.
At the end of the day, it really costs more. I mean, it's more time that you have to invest at the beginning. You know, you end up with a much more reliable product, but yeah, it's more time that you have to invest in the beginning. And it's neat to see there have been so many voted GroupBy sessions for continuous integration and continuous deployment. Like, people seem to be really interested in that. So that warms my heart as a database administrator. Because it's most of the time when I take polls of, all right, how many of you are actually even using source control? How many of you are checking, you know, your stuff into source control? And as a DBA, I was always like, well, I'm going to save my stuff. Okay, you know, never happy about it. And the DBA always had a separate little source control thing away from the developers, and I would always, my stuff's going over here. And then when they would have me fix something in production, like I'm trying to do index tuning in production, then I would just hand them, here, I did this, you go figure out where it goes in source control. I'm not playing around with that.
Yeah, and then you never look at that again, and it's kind of like, you kind of get into that loop of, why am I doing this? Like, what actually do I get out of this? Yeah, it's worth it. It definitely is worth it.
One thing with source control that I ran into with a recent client of mine was I think the tooling is a bit immature for it. Did I just kick someone out?
No, he just left on his own.
So I'm really no expert in continuous integration. I'm kind of just a passenger in this story, so I do what they tell me, and if they tell me to check stuff in, that's what I do. But for just an example of the issues I would run into is if you add a non-nullable column to a table that has data in it, the deployment will explode. So we built checks to make sure that in our nightly builds where we test our changes, everything we checked in, we made sure to have one row of default values in every table we had in the entire solution.
Oh.
And that way the nightly build would crash and not the actual deploy. Stuff like that, and that's, I would say it took a lot of time and energy to keep that stuff, actually build the continuous integration process rather than building the code. I'm very much looking forward to your session, James.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think if I don't know if you saw Alex Yates's talk last week.
I missed it, yeah.
He kept saying James is going to show this. James is going to show this.
Yeah, no, I watched that. I was like, oh wow, I need to add some more slides. Yes. But he really covers a lot of the stuff about like the actual methodology and the working practices and what people should be doing when. Today I'm going to be talking more about the tools that allow us to achieve that. So I would recommend looking at Alex's talk. Where's Brent gone?
I haven't seen the dog this week.
Sorry?
I haven't seen the dog this week.
Oh yeah. Bring him in. I'm expecting my cats to make an appearance at some point.
How lazy am I that I'm actually considering getting a coffee maker for the office? The kitchen's like 3 doors down, but I'm like, there are times when I don't want to leave this desk. Yeah.
I want to get a beer fridge in my right under my desk. Because walking upstairs takes a long time.
Well, and you're practically sober by the time you get there, and that's just ain't nobody got time for that. Yeah. I'm a huge believer in continuous integration. Once I say, because I've worked around developers. I've just kind of been vaguely aware of, oh yeah, they're doing something cool over there. But then once we brought Richie in and I got to watch, when I check in a bogus SQL script and it breaks his deployment, I'm like, oh, I really like that I don't have to bother him, that I know that there's something already broken and I can go fix it. And he points and laughs at me in the Slack channel, but at least it's only a private thing instead of me having to waste his time.
He'll warm up.
Yeah, yes. And then he even feels bad when he'll check in code and he'll be like, oh yeah, I'm the one who broke the build. And I'm like, I don't care. That's cool as long as you know without me having to figure it out. Yeah, it's all good.
I think it'll be, it'll really pick up just continuous integration practices. Like if you go today, if you're trying to learn a programming language like, Ruby or something like that, step one of anything you read online is let's create our Git repository because that's how we're going to be deploying everything later, right? So from day one, you're learning about, how to keep your data in source control and how to use it. If you look at SQL, right, all the blog posts and everything out there today is here's a script and just go ahead and run it on your server. I think a big switch will come when at some point there's, some easy way to just deploy your solutions, all your scripts through source control repository, something like that.
It's like even having the first responder kit stuff, all SP Blitz and all that is all in GitHub, and people will email us and go, hey, here's a change I'd like to make. And I'm like, GitHub's over there. You go check in your change, and it sucks. It's hard. It's not easy. Your first time blows. But I'm like, I'm determined to. I'm going to make people go over there. You go over there. You use that thing. You check your code in. And sometimes people are like, I don't want to bother. I'm like, okay, well, this is how it is. Eugene asks, for you guys' faux pas project, the big scale-out AG type thing we're doing with Kekira, how much continuous integration, continuous deployment was used for that project? So we're building infrastructure with code, so we're saying go, at the push of a button, go deploy, say, 5 SQL servers, manage storage, all the stuff's in Azure. The first problem you have to solve is you have to be able to do it manually, like be able to write out on a whiteboard, here's everything that we're going to do. Then you have to be able to write out the tests you're going to run. How do you know that your infrastructure build succeeded? And so the great example for if I'm going to go deploy a new SQL server is, after it finishes, can I log in? Can I restore a database? Can I run a query? If I have linked servers, can I run a linked server query over to somewhere else? Have I added it to my monitoring system? Have all of my monitoring things gone green, or is there anything that's red? And man, even just writing all of that out, because once you decide you're committed to testing a brand new SQL server, it's kind of exhausting, like writing out everything that you would do to test. So then the next step is, how do you write all the scripts to do it the first time? Then how do you automate both the deployment piece and the testing piece afterwards? So it's like a long, you sketch it out and it's 6 months, a year, 18 months long to really get all the way to the final vision. But we're aiming to get to the point where SQL servers are deployed automatically based on workloads. So if we have a client that's just absolutely hammering their SQL server, that we're able to look at the wait stats and figure out, all right, let's go deploy them a brand new SQL server. Let's set up log shipping to restore over to it so that during a maintenance window, the help desk staff can just push a button and fail them over from one server to another. You cannot get there. That's the 18-month vision. You can't get there with any manual deployments whatsoever. You have to have continuous integration. You have to have continuous deployment, where the sysadmins and developers just feel confident pushing buttons, having their builds tested. So it's a stunning amount of work. Like, nobody saves money in the beginning, but then you end up with a more reliable and self-healing agile infrastructure later in the end. So it's big. Like, the next piece that you'll see coming out, I'm not sure if we're going to release it next week or the week after, but Eric Darling is building a script that will, as part of this, we have hundreds or thousands of databases per SQL Server instance. If you're doing that, ain't no log backup job. It's not like you can just run one log backup job and have it continuously keep up. So he's built this thing where it deploys 10 agent jobs. It backs databases up in a queue. On the other side, it's restoring databases in a queue. So we have to have continuous integration and continuous deployment for that. So we're setting up build machines. It'll go through and check to make sure that the right number of backups are coming up, that databases are getting backed up on the frequency they're supposed to be getting backed up. And you got to figure that stuff out in test long before you go and push a button and deploy it to prod. It's once you take the approach, and at T-SQL Tuesday, are any of you guys blogging for next T-SQL Tuesday? It's the topic is DevOps in the database. That's a resounding no. Oh, you are? Yeah.
Yeah, I should be. I've still got to write it, but yeah, I should be there.
You and me both. Yeah. I started writing mine in the last break. Do you know what you want your top post to be on yet?
Well, I think I've done a series of blog posts on SQL Server and continuous integration, which this talk's based on. So I think I can pull some, elaborate on one of those posts, whether it's going to be actual using the product ready role to automate some deployments, or whether it's actually going to be more about unit testing. I still haven't decided yet, but it's going to be one of those two. I just need to expand on that, what I actually did in the post series.
If you want to cheat, too, you have a really easy out. The YouTube recording will be done for your session, so you can just put like a 10-word intro, and here's my video for T-SQL Tuesday.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's good.
Makes it easier. I'm going to do a review of Google's Site Reliability Engineering book. Technically, DevOps and Site Reliability Engineering aren't the same, but Everybody I know who's into DevOps is also into SRE, and so it's just so awesome to show them this book, and it really changes your life. At Google, they have this concept of an error budget. So if someone gives you a requirement for 99.5% uptime, just to pick a number, 99.5% uptime, that means you have 0.5% downtime, but it's really actually an error rate. 0.5% of your requests can result in errors, whether it's due to the server timing out, whether it's due to an error in the results, whatever. You are expected to spend your error budget. So you're expected to use up to 0.5% error rate, and it's depending on where your peak loads are, you figure out how you spend it most effectively. Maybe you spend it on unplanned outages, maybe you spend it on planned outages for things like patching, maybe you spend it for code deployment, or just experimenting on how can I save money and still provide good service. So they expect you, on a regular basis to do a little report. Here's what I spent my error budget on, and here's how I'm doing for the year. And you're encouraged to use your error budget, because if you don't use it, that means you're not experimenting, not learning anything, you're not trying new stuff. Man, that's just revolutionary when you sit down and talk with the business to go, if you give me 3 nines of uptime, I'm going to use the other, 0.1%. And you need to
if you explain it to them in financial terms, I mean, if you invest this amount of risk, I could give you this much more reward.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not sell it like, yeah, how about I fail your servers like 0.5% of the time?
Yes. Yes. We did it in that project. We initially started sketching out, and people always say, I could never lose data, and I can't lose, I can't go down. And I'm like, all right, here's the financial picture of what that looks like. But check this out. If you could lose 5 minutes of data this often, then here's the number of zeros that I can lop off this budget. And then people are like, go on. That just totally changes everything. It's even in this one, we got to the point where we're dropping down from Enterprise Edition down to Standard Edition, because we just don't need the stuff that's in Enterprise if I get a certain error budget, if I'm allowed to have a certain amount of downtime and data loss per year. Nuts.
I love some of the detail that book goes into. I've only flicked through it, but just the fact that it covers like engineers being on call and how to it's really good. Yeah.
Yeah. They talk about your technical workload. Like, you should not be solving issues on call more than 50% of the time. If you're on call, like facing broken servers more than 50% of the time, then you're not going to be able to code ways to fix it long term. They want you to spend the other 50% of the time building something to make your environment more reliable. But you have to have both. You have to be facing broken servers so you know what normally breaks, and then you got to go spend time doing engineering work in order to make it fail less often. Yeah. Unbelievable. Really good concepts. And for managers and for the executors, the people who are both managing the tech teams, it's great. And you see it in action, too. They give examples of it. I see it at Etsy, at the Stack Overflow guys, Kura. You see just this beautiful engineering piece when you overstaff enough that you're only on call 50%. And I say on call is even when you're working the help desk, 8 to 5. But when you give people that 50% time to go build solutions, wow, you get much better results. It's really impressive. How many of you guys are on call? No, none? Oh, wow, this is the most luxurious... Oh. Drew says me, Tara says not me. Wow, we're like the lazy audience here.
I'm not a DBA, that helps.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But you're still a consultant, right? You're
yeah.
I know consultants.
So I get phone calls on Saturday mornings when stuff breaks, but I'm not formally on call.
Yeah.
Which is probably the worst of two worlds.
I don't know. I mean, if you get the luxury of being able to say no, I mean, that just improves your life so much.
I mean, I could technically say no if I don't want to keep my client.
I have a friend of mine who's a consultant for several companies. It always happens that the emergencies strike at the same time. Everybody's servers always break at the same time. I'm trying to fix 3 broken servers all at once.
I try to build stuff so that it just doesn't break. So it just doesn't break. It's a good utopia, and I'll get there someday. But, dumb it down and keep it track all the errors and just nail everything down.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get there in time.
Mm-hmm.
10 years.
Every once in a while, I miss the 3 a.m. put out the fire phone call, but only for a few minutes. I pass. I get over it pretty quickly.
It's fun to that's what I like about stuff like SQL Help on Twitter or SQL Help in Slack, is that I can, when I want to, when it's convenient for me, I can see someone else's emergency and kind of go, oh, here's what I would do if I was you, or, jump in and screen share or whatever. But yeah, it needs to be when it's convenient for me, not when I'm off somewhere hammered drinking out of Aaron's beer fridge.
It's the same for like Stack Exchange and things like that. Like I can go on when I have a downtime, I'm waiting for something or whatever, I can go on and answer a couple of questions and help solve their problem. But it's not like I'm not getting a phone call. I'm not getting someone tugging on my shirt sleeve saying, hey, you need to fix this, right? It's voluntary, and you still get the same kind of satisfaction of solving a problem, but it's not a pressure or anything.
So Aaron is a moderator at Stack Exchange at dba.stackexchange.com. What does that mean? And like, what kind of job duties does that involve?
So I'm supposed to be nice to people, and I'm not always, and I'll admit that. Basically, the job is to make sure that conversations are staying on topic. So there are certain areas of database discussions that we don't want to encourage. So asking what's your favorite database book, or which database should I use for this kind of thing, or where should I get a database job? Those things they're not welcome on that discussion forum. And then you also have things like blatant advertising, where we've had people that come on and they represent a company and all of their answers are just, here, go check out this tool that helps put my kids through school, and they don't say it like that, but we do have to watch out for that. And also things like people, there are occasional voting rings where we have people that are just like voting up each other's answers and trying to build up reputation. And most of the time, it's the same person behind the same IP address or whatever. And so they make it very easy to detect that kind of stuff. And then, I answer questions too, and that's not something I necessarily have to do as a moderator. It's just something I've continued to do after being elected as a moderator. So we basically try to, keep the site tidy, keep it on topic. That's about it.
I should have a disclaimer here. You will notice probably if there's any voting ring logic that I constantly vote up Eric and Tara's questions, but it's only because in our company Slack room, I'm not going to click on it because we're probably saying foul things over there, but in our company Slack room, we have integration hooked up with Stack Exchange. You can set up integration so that every time there's a Stack question, it pops up in the Slack room. And that's addictive, because if you just look over your board and you look at the Slack room, and you're like, oh, here comes 3 questions that are tagged with SQL Server. Yeah, and then one of us will say answered, and then we go look at what they say and vote it up. It's tons of fun.
And that's okay. I mean, that's not crazy. It's when people are it's constant back and forth, and they're just helping each other out and not looking at any other content on the site. Then we know it's, someone called their buddy and said, hey, go vote up this answer. It becomes very obvious. The patterns are very obvious. So
nice. Ecob says.
Reputation. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Is Stack reputation such an important number? I mean, do people put it on their CV like, oh, I'm 10,000 on Slack, and they get this cushy job, or what?
Nobody cares.
No.
Do you contribute? I mean, if someone were to come to me, if I were interviewing, I said, I'm very active on Stack Overflow, I would go and look at a sample of their answers. I don't care if it got 10 votes or 100 votes, because the reputation is mostly driven by upvotes, right? That's where you get most of your reputation. And if you are in a very common area, so you're talking about SQL Server indexes, right? And all of your answers are around indexes, you're probably going to have a lot of upvotes, even if your answers are crap, because a lot of more popular topics get a lot more eyes. And people are, a lot of times, people will just upvote an answer that is long because that must be right because they spent a lot of time on it. So there's not really a good correlation between reputation and ability to work for me well. Right? Those are three very separate things that I want to look at. And so I'm much more likely to go look at your answers on Stack and look at the quality and what you're saying and how you're interacting with people than I care about the score. Right? The score is just a number. They're unicorn points. I mean, they don't mean anything.
Yes, they're awesome. They get you free drinks at Starbucks. If you're into the points, so I'll totally say I'm one of those who I'm super competitive, and so I just want to see my number going up. Like I want to see it's a measure of that I'm helping people, that I'm doing good work. So you get kind of excited about the number going up. And it's especially too once you get on the first, if you click users and like all time, and as you get on pages like this, you're like, oh, I better work hard in order to make sure I stay on this page. So that fosters a little bit of competitiveness.
Yeah, there's another thing too. So for me, and this has nothing to do with building up my reputation so I can move on to a better job or anything like that, but there's a badge on Stack Exchange that nobody has ever gotten, and a few people have gotten it on Stack Overflow. It's very hard to get on Stack Exchange just because the volume is a lot lower. So I got Epic a couple of years ago. Epic is 50 days of reputation cap. So they cap your reputation at 200 points a day because they don't want you spending 24 hours on the site. So the more, so Paul White got it recently. He got it in December of last year. There's another level to this, and it's legendary, and it's 150 days. And I'm not there yet. But I suspect I'll be the first person to get there. I have like 130 or something like that. And so that's like, I've never told anybody that, but that's like one of my secret little drivers for occasionally going on. Like yesterday I went on and answered a couple questions and I got 160 rep. And I have a lot of days like that where I come close. I've had days where I've gotten 195 and I'm like, could just like one more person upvote an answer and I could have earned one more day toward that. But if you find legendary on that list, you'll see nobody has been awarded it on this site.
I'm with Brent here. I'm pretty competitive. I was pretty stoked to see that I got some kind of badge. I couldn't see it flicking by now, but you get some type of badge for logging in every day for a number of days, like 1 year or something. I was like, yeah, I'm in!
It's either enthusiast or fanatic, depending on 30 days or 100.
30 or 100, yeah.
Mm-hmm. The one I really want, and I didn't know about this until Eric told me about it, but it just because it's so hard, sportsmanship. Upvote 100 answers on questions where an answer of yours has a positive score. Right. So first, you have to answer 100 questions, and you have to get an upvote on your answer. And you have to upvote someone else's answer on the same question. I'm like, that's just awesome. That's really
great. And that's hard too because a lot of times when you post a good answer on a question, because of the volume on the site, it's a smaller community, there often won't be a second answer to even vote on.
Yeah.
There are so many badges. I think there's one called Self-Immolator or something. I can't see it now. I think if you answer a question and you get it approved and you delete it or something, it's a complex set of rules. It's just it feels like they're making up all these badges just because.
Because we want to win them. I mean, if there's a badge out there, people want to.
There's one for delete. If you delete your answer because it got 3 downvotes, and so it's kind of like, okay, this is crap, I'll clean up the site a bit. That's kind of what the reward is.
Rich says, oh, it's got to be a different Rich. Rich says, if he looks at his sportsmanship badge, oh, you probably have it on Stack. You probably have it on Stack Overflow, not database administrators, which it's hard. I mean, then you have the same badges exist on every site, Stack Overflow, all kinds of, or one of my favorites, Skeptics. Stack Exchange. So there's all these different sites in the network. This one is amazing, skeptics.stackexchange.com.
Is that like conspiracy theories?
Yeah, exactly. Do dealers give free drugs to teenagers? Are some oceans so remote that the closest person is in the space station? Sure, wow, let's find out. So let's see. The top voted answer, it's a common misconception that something in low Earth orbit, like the ISS, is far away. Yeah, the oceanic pole of inaccessibility, the furthest thing from land is in the South Pacific Ocean. It's 1,600 miles from the nearest land. So some of the time when the ISS is overhead, it's the closer than... oh, wow, you can even find possibly places on land where the ISS crew is closer to you than the next person on Earth. Wow, that's...
I mean, it's just a couple of miles up, right?
Yeah, let's see, it says 400 kilometers. Yeah.
That's metric for 290 miles or something like that.
Yeah,
I've been out of Canada for 20 years, so my metric to crap is my conversion skills have weakened, but...
If it's not on the speedometer, I can usually remember conversions on the speedometer, but beyond that,
I love the new digital speedometers because when I cross the border, I just click a button and it changes to kilometers. It's awesome. So I know exactly, I don't have to do any math in my head anymore. That's why my skills have weakened. I don't have to think about it.
Nice.
For you guys running Macs, I'm looking at you, Brent and Aaron, try the search console and you can just write 20 MI or it'll convert stuff automatically. Works for currencies too.
402 kilometers is 250 miles.
Google is so good at this thing.
Yeah, it does that well too.
Yeah, 300 USD to euros. I mean, just anything that you would want to see. Good stuff. We'll see, because now I have to know. SQL Server to Oracle.
That dollar to euro conversion should know what the Canex places in the airports will rate you for. It's crazy how much upcharge there is on converted currency. I had to do it last week, so.
It's amazing how many people will actually still use cash. I mean, I can only speak for Sweden. There are places here that won't take cash anymore. It says credit card only on the door.
Yeah. So I have a chip card. My debit card is a chip card, and the chip has been scratched and doesn't work. So I can't go to an ATM, and a lot of places that require a chip card, it can't read the chip, so I can't enter a PIN. And in Europe, a lot of places they won't let you swipe. So I had no way to pay for anything. So I had to go to one of those places and convert some U.S. cash to euros. Not like 100 euros or something.
Well, when I travel, I always want to leave some money for the housekeeper on the pillow or whatever. So I go and get. So as soon as I fly into Poland, the first thing that I go do, not like I do it frequently. I did it once. So I fly into Poland. I go to the airport ATM just because I'm like, okay, whatever. It's only going to be $100 or something. And I made the mistake of saying whatever the top number is on the ATM, I'll get that much out. Because usually ATMs is not that much, right? It's like $100, maybe 200 in some places. And I was going to be there for like a week and a half. So I hit the top thing, and it's like 3,000 Poland, whatever it was.
It's a lot.
Yeah, I'm like, it seemed big, but I'm like, it could be like, $50 US. Who knows how conversion rates work? And then if I have my debit card app has on my phone, it immediately pops up. You just withdrew $900. And I'm like, you mean I just got screwed on currency exchange, taking it out, and then I get it back in?
But your bank should be pretty good about that. Your bank is going to be way better than the little booth in the airport. Way better.
Yeah.
USAA is amazing. USAA is very close to whatever the published rate is.
Man, yeah. So, I have PenFed, Pentagon Federal Credit Union, and there's no branches here, so then I got to just go to the airport and there goes $100 worth of frickin' fees. Jeez. So that taught me. Now I just don't go hit the... And I'm sure they do that on purpose, because I'm sure a bunch of American dumb tourists go walking in there. Oh, we'll take whatever it has.
Right.
Which leads to another wonderful travel story. So when I was way younger, Erica and I, she worked for the airlines. We were broke as hell, and we're just going around traveling because she worked for an airline. We could fly for free. So we go into Mexico, just broke as hell. No credit cards. We have a debit card, and that's it. I go to the ATM, and the Mexican currency sign is like the dollar bill sign. It's pesos, but it's the dollar bill sign. So I put my card in the ATM. I'm like, I'm dumb. I just got off my flight. Give me $50. and I get 50 pesos back. I'm like, oh, what the hell? Come on. So I go put it back in because the peso was worthless at the time. And so I go put it back in, and I go withdraw like 1,000 pesos or whatever. I'm like, okay, we're good. And we leave, and I left my debit card in the ATM. And they didn't have one of those timeout things. Like it took some period of time before it would eject. So we didn't realize it until we get all the way to the hotel. I have no other credit cards, and things start going to hell in a handbasket. And later I get on the phone with my bank, and they're like, yeah, it shows that you got out 50 pesos, then like 200 pesos. Then there's like a 6-minute gap, and then you got out 5,000 pesos, 5,000 pesos, 5,000 pesos. I then proceeded to do that 2 more times in New York City and in Rome. Great moments in travel, So good. Wow, Travis says I expected car crash videos. Travis must have been to one of my conference classes. So in conferences, like SQL Intersections Pass, whatever, I will generally play dash cam videos from YouTube up during the breaks. There's so many good dash cam videos. If you search for,
awesome.
Yeah,
there are so many of them in Russia. They're mandated by the insurance companies, so everyone has one.
Wow.
A lot of insurance companies won't give you insurance in Russia unless you have a dash cam. So it's easier to just get one, and that's why they're all over the place.
Oh. They should probably do that in America because, we just...
Came out of nowhere isn't a viable excuse anymore.
Oh, that's true because it's going to get used against you, too, when you do dumb stuff. Oh. I wonder if then they don't cover you.
Doing 180 miles. I don't know.
The gas pedal was stuck for 42 but only on the freeways. Wow, man, that blows. Jeez. Yeah, I have one, but it's, of course, nice to have the choice about whether or not I turn the video into my insurance agents. Ugh. God, yeah, there's so many good ones. Goodness, and of course, all right, so Doug's going to do this. We might as well play it, whatever it is. Let's see what it is. And it probably won't broadcast. Oh, wow. Gee whiz. Oh, that's terrifying. God, I would not want to be a truck driver. That's way too close.
That's a lot of fate that guy isn't going to suddenly slow down or turn or something.
Oh, the guy was probably asleep at the wheel. Probably both of them were asleep at the wheel. Now, I'm going to minimize those only so that folks with low bandwidth won't have too much of them. But if you want to see what we're talking about, you can go over to SQLSlack.com. SQLSlack.com is where you can go join the community Slack. There's channels for GroupBy, podcasts, if you're a podcaster like listening to podcasts, presenting or speaking, the upcoming SQL Summit. You can get advice on consulting. If you're an independent consultant, you have a problem you're running into, you want feedback. The general room is where we go to share just all kinds of things. You probably want to turn off notifications for some of these rooms. Like you'll notice that GroupBy, that room just lit up, and it also made a sound on my computer. People will be talking continuously. So you just want to, you can change things like your notification setup by going up to the general channel and then change your notification preferences. Like I just mute the general channel because there's so much going on. DBA Tools is super active. PowerShell is super active. All kinds of stuff. Azure, there's an Azure room. You can see the different directories, all kinds of stuff, fun stuff that's in here. And
just a tip, don't use @channel as a notification in some of these big channels because you end up pinging. In this channel, you would ping 400 people, and they would get a ding and possibly an email. Do they get an email? Yeah, they might get an email depending on their settings. Yeah, that's. Oh, so this one you can't even do it. Okay, that's good.
They turned it on.
In our channel, you can't. It's turned on, and you can actually notify everybody, and that's bad. And it used SQL Help, I think. Either used to have that, and so there are 5,000 people in that channel or something, and.
Oh wow! I did the wrong thing. Let me join. So join SQL Help. For those of you who are old like me, it has all the IRC syntax that you know and love. So /join and /me. So yeah, SQL Help, super active. Richie points out that Shift Escape is probably the best thing ever inside of Slack. Shift Escape marks everything red everywhere. So, like, for example, if you have 50 channels that all have stuff going on, you can, and even different Slacks if you want. Like, I've got stuff going on in the Brent Ozar Unlimited one. I can just hit Shift Escape, and then everything is marked as red. Ooh, fantastic. Ken asks, what topic is going on now? Well, as you can see, we're nothing. But 8 minutes from now, James here will be talking about continuous integration with a SQL Server. You can see the entire schedule over at groupby.org, and which is also where, I should say, you can vote right now. Voting closes today, and the competition's really tough for like the 8, 9, and 10 slots. There's only a few votes separate those. I would open that page and show it to you, except then it's going to bold the people that I voted for, and that's not exactly cool. So if you go to groupby.org, you can go cast your own votes and see how close the competition is for the 8, 9, and 10 slot.
Could you do it in a? Oh no, I guess you couldn't, right? Can you see the list of sessions if you're not logged in? Yeah, if you use incognito mode or.
No. So the problem is incognito mode recognizes also based off of your IP address and any cookies in there. So based on the tracking I do by IP address too, it will show who I voted for even in incognito mode. I know because I tried it. Yes, pretty
That is kind of crazy that it can still do that.
I don't require logins anymore. We used to require login. I'm like, forget it. Whoever wants to vote, vote. Is that mine? No. I had electricity going through the wires there for a minute. All right, so yeah, we got 5 minutes left before James kicks things off. We should check and see. Oh, Tim says, I once used an ATM and Mia Farrow had left her ATM card in it. That's weird. We should probably have a closest celebrity encounters question. All right, so Bert, what was the closest you've ever gotten to a celebrity?
Yeah, I mean, nothing comes to mind immediately now. Oh, no, I take it back. On our wedding night, the place where we got married, oh, man, of course, now I just forgot her name.
That's funny. I was trying to remember mine, and I couldn't forget mine.
You're married to her, for God's sake.
No, I forgot her name. Not my wife's name. We had Tina Fey. Tina Fey came to our wedding. Not really to our wedding, but she was staying at this tiny little hotel with like 10 rooms in it. So she inevitably was there. I'm just going to say she was invited. She was on the guest list. We gave her a pass.
What?
But, yeah. So I guess that was the closest.
Nice. Daniel, how about you?
I had breakfast with a SQL Server community leader. That guy named Brent, really nice guy.
Sheesh. James, how about you?
I think I remember when I was a little kid, there was because I grew up in Portsmouth, and that's where a lot of the D-Day stuff they sailed out from, and I remember some must have been 50th anniversary or something, and Bill Clinton came over, and it was quite far away, but I'm pretty sure he saw me. So.
Wow, that's kind of cool, especially because I was waving my hands, going, "Bill, over here!" Yeah. Aaron, how about you?
So I went to school with a lot of NHL players, so I had a lot of would-be later celebrity encounters when I was in high school. The junior team in North Bay was a very popular place for budding NHL players to be going through to play their junior hockey, and they would all have to still be in high school, so they all went to my high school. I met Doug Gilmore, who was I am so Canadian, yeah, sorry. Sorry, A. And I cornered Doug Gilmore and made him take a picture with me. So, what's the NHL? Come on now.
Joris, Richie's in Miami, so of course. I was in a Starbucks in New York City, and I was behind somebody, and I wasn't really paying attention. And the guy right in front of me gets his coffee and turns around, and it's Leslie Nielsen, the actor who was in Airplane, this deadpan comedian. And my face was just like, and he was just like, and just walks away with his coffee. I was so taken aback. I was like, okay, this is New York City. It's amazing. Yeah, okay, pretty cool.
I'm a bit face blind, so I tend to stumble into a lot of people, except I don't realize it. And my wife says, Did you see that? That was, I'm like, who? So if you see me and say hi and I don't look back at you, don't take it badly. I just don't recognize you. It's not personal.
I have a friend of mine with a disease. There's actually a syndrome where you don't recognize faces after a certain point in your life. Like, she will literally go to a doctor that she was at yesterday, and she doesn't remember whether or not she's ever met that doctor before. Just zero facial recognition at all. So she's developed a series of lines that she can use to just, get along and not have to worry about prosopagnosia. So yeah, it's wild to think about that. And
okay, so I recognize colleagues, but not people that I meet every now and then.
You're better than that, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
When you say you have a hard time putting a face to a name, that is the extreme example. Yeah. It's funny, she remembers everyone she knew. No, I don't know. It depends on the line of work that you're in. If you work with the public a lot, you can always be like, oh, yeah, that's right, I forgot, or, but you have to ask some kind of questions about, okay, so remind me, what was your name?
You get to learn certain tricks, you remember the beard or the glasses or the build or So I think some of my clients look like movie stars, and that's how I remember them.
Yes,
it's easier to relate to the guy who looks just like George Clooney than actually remember what his name was.
Wow. Man, see, this is the thing with Europeans. In Europe, I think everybody's just better looking. Whereas Americans, yeah, if you try that trick in America, nah, everybody looks like people who aren't really on the movie screen. We're not really that attractive. Canada, I don't know what I would say the Canadians look like. They're all over the board.